Hello, heroines. This is Alex. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I am delighted this afternoon to bring to you Dawn Overstreet. And Dawn is somebody that I met in another group, and I really enjoyed spending time with her. We've had since a coffee chat, and I thought she might be an interesting person to bring into the group to share her insights. So, Dawn, welcome.
Thank you, Alex. It's great to be here. Yes, I do remember our little coffee chat that seemed to just extend, extend, extend. So
Yep.
it's really nice to be here with you today to just share a little bit more.
That's very cool. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you were able to take a little bit of time out of your day. So let's just kind of kick things off. Let us know where you're from, what you do, kind of what's your story? How did you get started doing what you're doing?
Well, I'm originally from Roanoke, Virginia, and I'm now in Atlanta, Georgia, though I've been many, many, many places in my lifetime so far. I am a spiritual solutions coach, which basically, for me, means helping people to find that inner purpose that motivates them in the physical world that we live in so that they can find a sense of fulfillment and fun in everything that they do. And I love uncovering mysteries. All of us grow up with mysteries in our life that we've been passed on, until somebody changes that. Hopefully, it's ourselves that change those mysteries that get created in our early years. And I just happen to be one of those people that was very motivated in looking into that, training myself, and being able to pass that wisdom on to other people. So that's pretty much what I do these days. I've had lots and lots of different kinds of, as we call them, stories in my life so far. And each and every one of them has been very unique, though at times they didn't seem like a lot of fun to me. Coming out of each and every one of them was a great learning experience about myself, about what I attract, and how I can change that so I can be more like myself and just be a proponent of having more fun no matter what I'm doing in life.
So fun, I think, is my middle name. I think it's one of my core values. If it's not fun, like I remember when I was in corporate, all you had to do to get me to participate in any project whatsoever was just to say, we're going to have a lot of fun. And I was like, I'm in. I was like, that was my thing.
Yeah.
Um, I want, I wanted to come back to what you said before because it triggered a question, which is, do you work with generational things as well in the work that you do, like
Which, yeah, give me an
traumas
example.
from, generation after generation that people keep carrying and not resolving.
Well, I think that's pretty similar to my answer would be yes. What I call them are syndromes, things that keep reoccurring because we continue certain habits and they might be triggered by certain times of the year of our youth or other uh, experiences, past lifetimes that we may have had carrying these same habits on. So I call those syndromes, Alex, and yes, I do work with those to help people to identify them. I'm a real cause-based individual. I look at causes, I recognize symptoms, but I'm all about the causes of those symptoms. And that's why I love what I do, is because I know that everything that happens to me physically has a cause that is rooted in something spiritual that I am doing or not doing for myself.
So you're like the functional doctor for spirituality.
I love that. I am definitely going to start using that. In essence, yes, I do. I do uh, feel like that is exactly what I do. Is that, and being involved in, well, I haven't been involved with a lot of doctors in my life because I do, all the good work for myself so that I don't have to, move in that direction. But there was one occurrence in my life, that I did need the services of a doctor and I got through it. But it was all about something that I had created within myself that manifested in my physical body. And I had to work very diligently spiritually and to find the right doctor that understood that we had a partnership, in doing what he was going to do because he was all about the science of it, and being proud of his work and all of that. Is a very, very beautiful person. And I was all about, I'm going to do the spiritual last 2% that I didn't take care of to begin with, so that I come out of this whole and I never have to experience this ever again in my entire life. And it was cancer. And I had such a fine contract with this doctor, and I've maintained, contact with this doctor over the years because that was like 40 some years ago that this
Wow.
happened. And I am just a firm believer that my contract with my inner guidance and utilizing the wisdom that I have gained from all the experiences that I've had in my life, if I'm not going to use the tools, I might as well give them to somebody who will. So I have maintained that everything I've ever done in my life, I don't care if it was in the creative field of modeling music or in living on the land, which I did for 7 years very self-sufficiently, to all of the things that I've done in my life, I attribute that one thing is that I have learned from everything that I do about me, all of my little habits that weren't good for me that I needed to refine or change or do all of that so I could live a very healthy lifestyle. And I have. I've maintained a very healthy lifestyle. If I go for a checkup, they want a list of my medications. I'm like,
And
I don't know
ailments.
what those are.
Yeah,
I don't take any medications, And they all
that's
look at me
awesome.
like, Um, uh, yeah, well, if you want to know more about that, I am available.
Yeah.
You
They
know.
probably see you as a unicorn because they probably
Oh,
don't see somebody like you very often.
I would have to agree with you on that, because most people my age, I'm 78 years old now. Most people my age have already experienced, things that I have no idea what they're talking
Yeah,
about because I can't relate to it because I haven't had those experiences. Now, that's not to say that that might not happen because our physical
yeah,
body definitely ages. But I just feel like as long as I am taking care of myself spiritually, I'm going to be fine physically. And that's just cemented into my
yeah.
state of consciousness at this point in time in life. And it has been for a very long time.
Yeah, it's just a default part of your identity.
Yep.
So what got you started? Like what's your Genesis story?
Well, I'm not sure what the Genesis story means, but my story is um, I've been married 4 times. The first time was to get away from home. I was very young. So I married this guy in college and, we went away. The second time was and I moved to New York and then I married a very famous photographer
Okay.
because I was doing some modeling work in New York City. And then we went to Canada because I wanted to live off of the land. And of course, he was a very, photographer in the boonies. I'm literally in the boondocks.
Okay.
No people around. 11 miles is the nearest person. You had to walk into my land, a mile and a half to get there. And everything was built right there with a chainsaw. So he was not as gung ho as me. So I ended up leaving that relationship and coming down to the mainland where I founded a gold and silver jewelry business that was international. And then I met up with somebody there and I got married again there. And the founder of a program, college, married us. And I started my spiritual, awakening at 28
Yeah.
years old. And that's when I was really searching. I already had two kids at that time. And I just was overwhelmed with all of the things that were going on in my life.
Mm.
And I found a tremendous amount. I walked in, actually, when I came down to the mainland before I got married, I bought this little $100 car and packed up and left the land, came down, and my car died at the conference center there in Pugwash, Nova Scotia. And I got out and went inside, and all these people were all excited. I guess I was somebody new, and I walked in and they were telling me all about this spiritual stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not the day for this. My car doesn't work. I've got kids in my car. I've got to, do something here. At the same time, there was this guy from upstate New York who was looking for somebody to take care of his farm. And I was like, oh, and I tapped on his shoulder and he said, hi, and introduced himself. And I said, I'm the person you're looking for. I just lived self-sufficiently for the last 7 years up on Cape Breton Island back in the boonies, and I can do anything. And he looked at me and he's like, do you have kids? And I'm like, yep. And he said, nope, you're not the person. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I am your person. So finally he said yes, and I moved into this house and at in Pugwash, and he had 2 acres of vegetables that were ready for distribution, and he left. So there I was by myself, and I kept going back to this conference center. And about 2 weeks after that, I met all these wonderful people from around the world because it had just opened. And they were touring all over the world, with this message of inner freedom and inner security and, how we can be a better us and all of this. And I was just like a little rubber band about ready to break, and I just didn't want to hear it, but I kept going back. And 2 weeks after I got involved, I told the people there I wanted to be a consultant. And they were like, oh, well, I think you need to talk to the founder. You're just 2 weeks in. I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that? And they were like, he's in Australia. And I'm like, okay. So I got the number and went out to the payphone and called Australia, and who answers the phone but him?
And you called Australia from a payphone.
And believe me, it took a lot of pennies, and I mean a
I
lot of
believe
pennies.
it.
And so anyway, he answered the phone, and he said, who is this? And I told him my name, and he said, and what do you want? And I'm like, I want to be a consultant of the 1001 profile. And he laughed. He just laughed and he said, okay. And I'm like, oh, it was that easy? So I went through the training, and then I started
Sometimes you
doing,
just got to ask, right?
yeah, that is such an elongated story about what I want. But we're not going to have time to go into that one because there's so many stories in my life. But anyway, I ended up getting married, and the founder of the college married us. And he was my partner in the gold and silver jewelry business. And then at one point, I knew that I really wanted to do more. I really wanted to work more with people. Not that I wasn't already, but I really wanted to do more spiritual work. And so I started traveling with the business across Canada and into the United States, doing the marketing and trade shows and things like that. And I would extend my stay and do seminars. And that was wonderful. I love that. So I ended up getting divorced from this individual as well. And then when I did come back into the States, I got married again. And through each of those experiences in my life, what I realized is that I had been at that time hiding behind other people and really not wanting to come out front with who I was and what I had to offer people. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. In my group, I have so many wonderful people there, but I know that the majority of them are very afraid to be interviewed. They're afraid to come out front because they don't feel they're good enough, they're insecure in some way, um, and they just spend time doubting, their ability to just get on there and chit chat with me, kind of thing. And obviously, it's not hard, right, Alex? I mean, here
No,
we are, just
we're
chit
just
chat.
having a conversation.
Exactly. So, anyway, I've learned from that my inability to take charge and to really just be myself
Mm,
was my greatest learning experience. Not that I wasn't out front of people all of the time, but it was always somebody else that was kind of directing my picture rather than me directing the picture that I saw myself in. So I do believe that every experience that I've ever had in my life, whether it's living on the land, whether it's having marriage partners or whatever, I have learned great things and I have left situations better than they were when I was there. And that's all that's important to me is realizing that nothing lasts forever, not even myself. I'm going to pass on at some point in time, hopefully the way I want to do it.
yeah.
And
And later rather than sooner.
oh yeah, not that I'm afraid at any point in time, but I
Yeah,
still
but you
feel
have a mission.
I have a mission and I do not feel like I have totally fulfilled it yet. And I keep saying that I want to do it like my mother and my father did it. And that was just, okay, I've had enough. I'm hopefully I won't be taking medications. They were. They stopped taking their medications. They stopped eating. They stopped doing everything, laid down in bed, and 8 days later, they just passed away. And I'm like, wow, they made that decision.
Mm,
And I love helping people be in the driver's seat of making their decisions and not just
yeah.
any decisions, but good decisions, based on what they're here to do. And how by knowing that just brings them a tremendous amount of fulfillment, both inwardly and, it's like I was watching another interview that you were doing and talking about inward to the outward.
Mm,
And that is so important to me is that people feel that inner security, that they can be themselves and that they can go Yahoo,
yeah.
anytime that they want, that they can feel so important and unique in their own bodies, in their own cells, in their own environments, and know that they have so much to contribute. I keep saying, a lot to people that I meet or consult with that everyone is so unique. They have such an incredible story. They don't even know that story is so incredible. And that's why I love consulting, is because I get to meet people and hear their stories,
Mhm.
but not only them, help them find solutions for the things that are keeping them from just being who they are.
Mm, mm. And I love to hear you say that because I'm like you. I believe um, we're all unique. My story is different from yours. It's different from other people because we're the only ones that have walked the path that we've walked. And I'm learning that every story is important because every story brings something that the world needs. And we all bring something that the world needs. So I wanted to come back to what you said before about going to that spiritual center and going back and going back and going back. Do you remember what you were looking for that even though it didn't feel like it was your place, you just felt compelled to go back?
I tell you the truth, Alex, every time I remember me talking about feeling like I was like this rubber band about
Yeah.
ready to explode. I just left the home that I built in Cape Breton Island. I just bought $100 car. It just died, so everything kept making that rubber band just, then I was concerned about finding a place to live once I got to where I was. So all of these things just compounded that stress level and that worry level and that doubting level. Um, Even though I had done so much in Cape Breton, and built so much for myself there, I realized that every time I walked through that door, I just felt better.
Mm,
I didn't know why. I just felt calmer. And I kept being led by these people from around the world through these little workshops. And every time I came out of the workshop, I felt better. I felt like the pieces of my puzzle of my life were being united to where I could actually relate to my own life. And I didn't feel that stress and pressure that I was feeling. I only felt like I can do this. And that's an incredible feeling to have that no matter what happens around me, I got it. I
yeah.
got this. And for people to be able to feel that,
Mm,
in their own life, to me, that is such a gift to be able to help people to find their way to that one feeling and to know that they can move around their environments wherever they go and they still have it. And they're
yeah.
not influenced by the things that go on around them in the environment. Right now, we're in a very pressured universe of things going on, and it's hard not to be aware of it,
Mm,
but we can learn to not be influenced by it so that we aren't floundering around out there, and wondering what we need to do
mm,
next or being fearful of what's coming.
yeah. And I love that. I think, being centered helps us to weather the storm, right? So what would be what would you say to our heroines who are going through or are just starting to go through this journey of rebuilding after the loss of a relationship? What's something that you would like them to know?
Alex, I think the first time is to take the time to really evaluate what went on in that relationship and what they gained from it, because that's all that's really important. Nothing
Mm,
else is important. Everything else is going to go away if we build on the strength of what we've learned from something. It doesn't have to have been a good experience or a bad experience because we're here to grow and to learn. And by how we do that is by the experiences that we set up for ourselves. So we need to get better at learning how to make better decisions based on what we came here to
yeah.
do. And the other thing is to be very patient
Mm,
because when an individual feels hurt or something or victimized or imposed upon, however one wants to see it, it takes time to undo those emotions that
mm,
keep us wound up in such a knot that we can't even see the forest for the trees. So that would be my recommendations, to people in those situations because it does take time to overcome experiences that were not
mm,
so good or that we viewed were not so good. But we have to remember that out of all of them, we learned something about ourselves
yeah.
that we can utilize and stick into our tool chest so that we have a reminder of what we did get out of it for ourselves. We always benefit in some way,
Yeah.
unless we just like to suffer.
True. And I know people that are stuck in victim mode. and they may not like it, but they also aren't sure how else to to live that experience. So I think changing the story around what has happened is a very powerful way to steer the feelings and steer the experience towards something positive instead of being stuck in something negative. So um, thank you for that. I think that's beautifully said. So thank you. And yeah, any final words before I let you, before I set you free?
No, I've had so much fun with you. I'm so glad that we were able to do this together. I love chatting with you. I feel like we do have a lot in common, and
Yeah,
it was just a fun, relaxed. I like that,
good.
chat back and forth, and I really like those kind of get-togethers with people. And I wish all of your viewers and the people in your group, a lot of success, and certainly to know that someone like myself really encourages and supports and backs individuals going through whatever they may be going through, but to be really patient.
Yeah. And I know patience is not my strong suit, but so I take that and I embrace it and I thank you. And heroines, I thank you for watching. I hope that what Dawn shared, that something resonated with you, that you can walk away with something that you can implement in your journey